Well, there you can see what's going on with the block. Obviously, something said no mas. My name's Colin, and this red carcass right here is what's left of my 5-liter Mustang. Let's take a look. Now, I believe it was Sesame Street who played a game called One of These Things is Not Like the Other, and I'm sure some of you scientists can deduce that that is indeed the case. So, what happened was the turbocharger that was on here was feeding a whole lot of air, and eventually something checked out. And I'm not really sure what it was, if I lifted a head or if the piston shattered or what, but it was quick and it was violent and it was a lot of fun up until it let go. So, at any rate, it is time to replace this engine.
Now, some of y'all are probably thinking, hey, dude, engines don't just blow up. Well, hell, I don't know, Ricky Bobby. How does the posi traction rear end work? It just did. So it was completely stock internals on this 302. It had been turbocharged for roughly a decade, and I'm just blaming metal fatigue. Now, it could have lifted a head. The head gasket itself could have checked out. And it could have been the tune that I thought was safe and really is probably a ticking time bomb. I genuinely don't have an answer, but I do know that I was ready for the turbo kit to go away because the car overheated during the summertime, and I just, no matter what I did, I could not get this car to run cool. So it was time for it to go, and this was an excellent opportunity to make that happen. But before we move on, let's just take a minute and appreciate exactly what happened here because it is spectacular. Yes, that is daylight you see out the other side of the block, and yes, that was a gigantic hole on this side of the block. Wow. Impressive. For me, even.
Well, it has been so long since I've worked on this, I forgot where I left off with filming. So, we're going to start fresh and act like nothing ever happened. This is a 351 roller motor that I traded for the turbo kit that came off of the Mustang. So it was a $0 transaction. And my goal with this is to get it running as cheaply as I can possibly manage. Is it the dream setup I've always wanted? Absolutely not. But like I said, I just want to get this car back on the road again. And that's what we're going to do. So, as I've already said, I traded the turbo kit off of the car for a fresh roller 351 motor. It is 30 over. It has some hyper-eutectic pistons in it. And with the 027 MLS head gasket I have on it and the 58cc heads, the compression should be right around 10.29 to 1. So still kind of within the pump gas range, but nothing super crazy. Anyways, what I'm going to do. So, but before I move on, one last thing, the camshaft. When I bought this motor, or when I traded for this motor, I had no idea what was in it. So I sent the camshaft off to the School of Automotive Machinists in Houston. They had a cam doctor. They put the cam in there, and the specs were, pretty mild. It was a 531, 541, 223, 231 on a 112. I don't know anything about camshafts, but it sounds good to me. And like I said, I'm trying to get it running. So
So, one thing I did notice as I'm putting this motor back together is that the timing chain, for whatever reason, appears to be a GM set. And whether or not it matters or not, I'm not sure. But I can tell you that the timing chain itself was like guitar string tight. So I opted not to reinstall that and instead put on one that I had on the shelf that was lightly used. And that fit a whole lot better. I couldn't get comfortable with that. So, with that said, I have a whole bunch of footage that I lost the audio for. I guess the battery and the mic died. So I'm going to try and guess what I was trying to tell you here. I'm assuming it's something along the lines of this was the heads that were on the 302. When it blew up, they got damaged. I took them to the machine shop. They put 3 new valves and decked everything for me and re-welded the chamber. We're good to go here with these ProMax 180 cylinder heads or something along those lines. Now, while I torque this cylinder head down in complete silence because my microphone is dead, I will say that these ProMax 180 cylinder heads have been a pretty solid buy for me. I bought them several years ago on a Black Friday deal at like $800 shipped to my door complete, and I strapped them on the 302 with the turbo, and they ran flawlessly since then. like I said, the motor blew up, had them fixed, and I'm going to run them on this. I did have them milled down to 58 cc's, as I mentioned already, so I'm hoping they continue to serve me well. I'm hoping and I'm thinking this engine is going to make somewhere around the 400 flywheel horsepower mark, and I will be perfectly okay with that so long as the AC blows cold and the power steering doesn't squeal. Those are big asks for a Ford, but we'll see. Uh, Editor's note: a lot of movies will have something called a plot twist, and for this story, it's now time for ours. Here we go. Now, somewhere along the way, I got the idea in my little harebrain that it was a great idea to have everything powder coated. Now, as you can see here, the results speak for themselves and it looks absolutely phenomenal. But then I decided if the engine's going to be pretty, well, the engine bay also has to be pretty. So I just completely derailed the entire operation of staying cheap and easy by tearing the rest of the car apart and smoothing out the engine bay. And so this is where our story goes next. So here we go with replacing the inner fenders. And now I actually ended up making a separate video on this. I will link to it in the description if you haven't seen it. So we're going to move through this pretty quick. There's about 100 spot welds you've got to drill out to get these stupid things out. And once I finally got that done over the span of a couple weeks, I pushed the car outside and pressure washed everything because when the engine let go, it sprayed everything with nastiness. So once everything was clean, I put the new LMR inner fender panels back in and welded them back into place. Pretty quick and easy process, not a whole lot to it, but again, you can see all that in the video. It's an excellent form of masochism and sadism, as you will see here, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. And why is that? I'm glad you asked, because after you do all this, you realize you've got these nasty frame rails and nasty shock towers and nasty firewall, so you've got to fill all those holes in too. And it just never ends. And this, my dudes and dudettes, is where the easy part ends. You have to get creative. So I could not force myself to leave the frame rail bare like that. So I took some CAD, which is cardboard assisted design, and traced a template onto some sheet metal, cut it out, and booger welded it into place. People like me are the reason why body filler exists, because I am not a fabricator and I just don't do it enough to be good at it. So we'll booger weld it into place and smear mud on it until it looks good and call it a win. So here's the panels once they're finally done, and it looks okay, but it's about to look a whole lot better. Fair warning to anyone that does body work, even somewhat professionally, you're about to scream at the screen because everything I'm doing here is completely ass backwards. Apparently, according to Professional Body Man, you are supposed to take everything down to bare metal, then apply your body filler, and then sand it, and finally do your epoxy primer. I've done all of that backwards, and I do it backwards for about 4 different rounds until I got diminishing returns, got frustrated, and gave up and decided I was done with it. I just did not enjoy any part of this. As you can see, it just goes on and on and on. Thank God for time lapse, because we would sit here for days watching me sand on stuff. So at long last, I got it to the point of spraying color, and I put 3 coats of the factory electric current red down. Fortunately, when I bought the car, it came with a half gallon of paint. I didn't have to buy any of it, so it worked out pretty well. And also to address the elephant in the room, well, not so much the elephant, but the hanging piece of metal there. That is an aftermarket K-member, which I've replaced the factory one with, and I'll explain to you why in just a second. So do I have any tips and tricks for spraying paint? No, absolutely not, other than probably do the opposite of pretty much everything I did. The color went on pretty easy, no runs. The clear is a whole other story. So while there are some runs in the clear and there's trash in the paint, as you'd expect from a garage job, it is imperfect. But I have to keep telling myself it is an engine bay. It's going to be covered up with stuff. It's going to get scratched and it's going to get dirty again. Just live with it. So that being said, I'm happy with this, and I will move on to the next part of our story, which is putting things back together finally. So that gets us to where we are presently in January of 2026. And I blew the car up on Cinco de Mayo of 2025. So it has been a long process in the making. And part 2, I can assure you, will not be so long. So please stay tuned, and I will have more updates on this car soon. And if you don't mind, hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment. It is free for you, and it helps my channel out tremendously. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.